Hello, my name is Jack Anthony, and I am a 1978 graduate of the Air Force Academy, a member of the Department of Astronautics. But today I'm going to tell you about the long ago history of the Air Force Academy. We're proud of the history since 1954 when the Academy came to be. But what I'm going to do is take you back in a time machine to a time when the pioneers came here to this area, long before the Air Force Academy was a gleam or dream in anyone's eyes. I'd like to thank many people who've helped me, particularly here at the Air Force Academy, the civil engineering folks, the special collections folks in the library, and also many folks, descendants of pioneers or folks who lived here before the Academy was here, who've helped me in my research. I've been at this since 1999. It's because of my running on the Air Force trails that I got interested in what was here long before we were. So I hope you'll enjoy the journey back in time, and I want to again thank everybody who's supported my research. Our journey back in time will go back to around 1860 or so. That's when the pioneers started to come here. We'll meet entrepreneurs, pioneers, and all sorts of folks who settled here and made a go of the wild West. We'll also take a look at some interesting parts of the Academy, in particular the North Gate's long ago community of Husted and the South Gate's long ago community of Edgerton. We'll also take a look at Cathedral Rock, very interesting story there, and I'll introduce you to the pioneer cabin that William Burgess built in 1875. There's all sorts of tidbits you're going to learn about the Academy. This is an aerial view of the Academy way back before we were here. It gives you an idea of just how much things weren't here. We'll take a closer look, and now I'd like to quiz you and see if you can figure out where everything is. This is a map from 1912. It's a topographic map of the Academy. Let's now look deeper into it and see what we're seeing here. You could see Monument, the North Gate, the South Gate, and even where Falcon Stadium was. We'll keep learning. There's the Academy area, the 18,000 acres, and then we'll keep going some more. And we see the valleys, Jack's Valley, where the cadet summer training takes place, Lehman Valley, also known as Dead Man's Valley, Douglas Valley, named after Earl Douglas, and Pine Valley. So that'll give you a little bit of an orientation of where everything is. See that there were two communities, Husted and Edgerton, and we're going to learn a lot more about them. So here's the view, and I wonder if you could find major areas that exist today. Let's help you by identifying some landmarks: Blodgett Peak, Eagle Peak, and Cathedral Rock. Okay, so there's where the cadet area was. It was built on a ridge. The folks who built the Academy did an amazing job of putting the cadet area right on the ridge there. Let's look again and see where the athletic fields were. Actually, these fields were almost ready for the cadets. They had to be terraced. The Lehman family raised sheep where the cadet athletic fields are today. And we'll keep looking some more. Falcon Stadium was built into the end of a ridge line. Where we cheer for the Falcons, that was a remote area where the Capps and Burgess families lived long ago. The hallowed cemetery, you can see where it is, and you can also see where the North Gate is today as well. I bet you don't know what this is today, but this is the Lehman Ranch back in the 1950s, a beautiful ranch that occupied where the cadet athletic fields are today. If you're an Air Force Academy Falcons soccer fan, you've been here. But did you know, long ago, this was the Lehman Sheep Ranch? Here's a photo of the Academy under construction. You can get a glimpse of where the Lehman Ranch is, and you can also see Cathedral Rock in the distance. But there's all those great workers putting the Academy together in the late 1950s. During my research, I looked back to the 1860s and learned of many pioneer families, from the Wilsons up in Jack's Valley to Edgerton and teach-outs in the southern part of the Academy. In many cases, I was able to contact descendants of these great pioneers and talk to them. and that was a lot of fun. First, we're going to talk about the Husteds. Notice I say Husteds, plural. There was a West Husted, which was a railroad town on the Denver-Rio Grande Railroad, and East Husted, a stop on the Santa Fe Railroad. So let's explore the Husteds. If you've been to the North Gate area, you've been to the Husteds. We're now here at the site of Husted, which in the 1860s was a busy lumber mill that Calvin Husted established. Later on in 1871, General Palmer established a railroad camp here where many railroad workers would work building the Denver-Rio Grande Railroad north and south to Denver. There was homes and railroad community along here and homes up in the hills. Let's now go ahead and take a closer look at the community of Husted. This is an aerial view of the North Gate area, and what I'd like to do now is illustrate for you where these two little communities were. I'll orient you with where the North Gate is, the B-52 Memorial, and also the cemetery. Now let's learn more about where Husted was. East Husted is along the new Santa Fe running trail. It's a little bit south of the North Gate on the running trail, and it was a small community that had a station on the Santa Fe Railroad, which was built in 1887. Now we'll take a look at where West Husted was. That was a bigger community over by the where Civil Engineers stores a lot of their equipment these days. It started out as a lumber mill and then became a thriving little railroad community, and now we'll learn more about Husted. This is a topographic map, and if you look in the lower right corner, you'll see where Husted was, and you'll see all those little dots. Those were buildings, and I've gone back and found some of the foundations of those buildings that formed this thriving community. This is an artist rendition courtesy of the Air Force Academy Special Collections that shows how Husted started. Calvin Husted of New Jersey was a lumberman, and here he would bring lumber from Palmer Lake and Black Forest and get it shipped down to Colorado Springs to build that wonderful town. This is a photograph of two gentlemen from the Palmer Lake Historical Society who are helping me explore the Husted area, Jerry McDuffie and Bill Husted. You'll catch the name Husted. He is the great-grandson of Calvin Husted, who settled in this area, and these two fine gentlemen helped me explore the area. This is an aerial view, a zoom in of what it looked like in the late 50s. We're going to dig a little more into this area and learn more what was there, for this photograph doesn't do it justice. I'll give you a little bit of orientation relative to the North Gate and the B-52, and now we'll learn a little more about Husted. We're now about 100 yards south of where the community area of Husted was. This site is where the engine house was, where a locomotive would await a northbounder and then hook into it and help it get over Palmer Divide, and then return here and await another train. The station was also located in this area. Let's now take a look at where the train station was. There's the topographic map. All those dots are structures. They're not there anymore. Let's explore where the railroad is today. I'll reorient the map, and if you look in the area, you'll see that there's evidence of these structures that were there long ago. This is where the Husted train station was located. Also, here is where the single track branched out into 5 lines leading north into Husted. I was fortunate to get an 1888 railroad map of the town, and I learned a lot through my exploration. The Denver-Rio Grande had a single track in and out of West Husted. However, they would switch out to 5 separate tracks. They had an engine house, a station, and several other structures that supported the railroad endeavors there. Here, trains would move on to a side switching to let them others trains go by. It was quite a jockeying effort, but single track in and out of Husted branched out into up to 5 tracks. Evidence of the tracks are still there today through the solid concrete understructure that held the switches. This is one of the many structures that remains today in Husted that supported railroad operations. Here's some modern photos of what it looks like today. You can see cuts through the earth and where the modern Burlington Northern Santa Fe runs through today. So quite a story to tell there. Here's an aerial view that shows how the narrow gauge train winded its way north. It was built in 1871. By the 1900s, they converted it to a standard gauge. And this gives you an idea that if you're on the North Gate Bridge and not driving your car, you can look south and gaze upon the West Husted area. Unfortunately, there was a terrible train accident here on August 14th, 1909. Some orders got confused and a northbound train ran into a southbound train and several people were killed. You'll see next that the accident made the New York Times. It was a terrible accident. By 1918, the two railroads agreed to have one line be northbound and one line be southbound. Here's a view of Husted, and this circles, all the circles you see are all the areas that I've happened to explore, and I kind of put together what the town was like. They had a clay pit run by the shoemakers. They had roads and bridges and homes and even a road leading up to the ranch up by the cadet area, the Lehman Ranch. Over in East Husted, we have the Kinner Store, a stopping point on the way to Denver or down to Colorado Springs. Notice the really cool looking gas pumps they had back then, gravity fed. The Kinner Store was a favorite stop for many who were traveling the road to Denver. Here's some other photos of the Husted area. You could see the train station and see some of the homes behind it. And below you could see evidence today that shows hints of this once thriving community. Now we're going to go to the south part of the base and visit the community of Edgerton, named after David Edgerton, who homesteaded 160 acres in this area back in the late 1860s. Let's now explore Edgerton. Edgerton is located where the 10th Air Base Wing, Civil Engineering and Transportation are located, just west of the airfield. And this gives you an idea of where it is today, near Ice Lake. That was once the thriving community of Edgerton. The map here shows where Edgerton was and didn't have as many buildings in the 1912. This town thrived prior to the 1900s. We'll learn more about its history next. So here we see the overhead view, and there's an idea of where Edgerton was. If you go to the trailhead and run the new Santa Fe Trail here, you're parking in downtown Edgerton. The Ice Lake was part of the thriving business there. Cascade Ice Lake Company had a bunch of lakes, and they harvested blocks of ice there and loaded them on trains. We're now in the southern end of the Air Force Academy, and here the community of Edgerton, Colorado existed in the late 1800s. One of the enterprises of Edgerton was the Cascade Ice Company, and right now I'm standing in what was then the Cascade Ice Lake number 2. And over here we have the dam structure that held the water back, that enabled them to cut big blocks of ice and ship them on the Denver-Rio Grande Railroad. Remember, the refrigerator hadn't been invented yet, so if you had a lake with blocks of ice in the winter, that was a cash crop. Also, the North Aqueduct was a water line coming down from the mountains that serviced Colorado Springs. It was called the Northfield Aqueduct. The Teachouts were south of there, and they had a ranch south of the Academy. Now, Edgerton has a very interesting history. It's the town that disappeared, but did it really disappear? What happened was the town grew, and they had a post office and a rail stop and a general store, and it was a splendid little town. But in the 1903 time frame, they actually moved the post office south to Pikeview. And then they started to count the citizens of Edgerton against the citizens of Pikeview. The town did sort of disappear into a small community because when the road was built to Denver, the railroad and the stagecoach no longer came through there.